Hi, everyone. This is Annette with Chandrakanti Astrology. And today's topic is just a short discussion about Saturn, anemia, and what you can do from an Ayurvedic as well as allopathic perspective. And specifically, I want to talk about Saturn's transit on the moon and how this can bring up issues in your blood, and specifically anemia. And if you have been feeling not yourself, if you've experienced a lot of losses lately, if there are some mental or psychological issues that are coming up, just know that the Saturn transit has been difficult for many of us. I have a lot of clients who are dealing with this, myself included. I recently lost my mother. And I recently found out I have anemia as well. So this is all caused by this transit of Saturn right over my moon. And in addition, it's in my 8th house. So it's causing a lot more chronic health issues as well, because the 8th house, and I'm going to talk about this soon, can be one of the toughest transits to have to deal with of Saturn transiting in your 8th. So it's very difficult. And when we look at transits, we are looking at the transits from the rising sign, from Maruta Lagna, which is your image. And we're also looking at it from where the moon is placed, your natal moon is placed in your birth chart. So we're looking at transits from many different perspectives, and how the transits affect you are also determined by other planets transiting as well. But we're going to keep this conversation really simple, and I'm just going to discuss about Saturn transit based on your rising sign. That's it. And just keeping it really simple and looking at what how Saturn might be affecting your health, and in particular your blood, because the moon is involved. So I'll be discussing that here today. And then my suggestions. So they're not 100% complete suggestions. You need to go see an Ayurvedic practitioner, as well as probably a medical doctor if there are issues. But I just want to start this conversation and have you start to think about what you can do for your health. So Saturn is a planet that is very slow. It takes Saturn 2.5 years to move from one sign to the next. And Saturn has been in Pisces since March 29th. So he's got about another 2 years to go until he moves on to Aries. And this means that we're really going to feel the effects of Saturn. I mean, the Saturn is heavy, and we have another 2 years of Saturn in Pisces. So if you're having losses and health issues, just hold on. You have another 2 years, but it'll get better once he moves on. Now, Saturn is a very Vata disturbing planet. Saturn can bring up a lot of Vata issues such as arthritis, systemic drying, accelerated aging, constipation. And he can also affect our mind from a Vata perspective by bringing up phobias, depression, stress. And Saturn can also affect our finances by increasing our debt, forcing us to work harder for every dollar that we owe, that we earn, and even can bring on theft. So we might even experience that depending on where Saturn is transiting in your chart. So Saturn is difficult. He's a harsh planet. Yes, he can bring some good things, and he can bring some amazing financial gains if he wants to, depending also where he's transiting and other factors in your birth chart. But in general, we will see a lot of negative effects of this Saturn, unfortunately. And there are Jyotish remedies to mitigate this. So I want you to know, I'm not saying all this to scare people, but to just bring awareness, and also to know that there are solutions. We do have remedies to help soften this transit and to help us ride through the transit and lessen the loss and lessen the effect that it has on our health. But also to be aware that our health could be affected, and to be proactive and do something about that. The moon because we're going to be discussing the moon here and how Saturn affects the moon. The moon has to do with Rakta Dhatu, the red blood cells, lymphatic system, the lungs and the chest, because it's the natural ruler of the fourth house, and the fourth house has to do with lungs, chest, and peace of mind and joy. Has to do with houses and cars as well. And the moon has to do with fertility, ovaries, any issues we might have with hormones, the moon might be affected. Psychological or mental disorders, we also look at the moon, because usually the moon is also involved when we have disturbances of those types. So the moon, though, big thing to look at when Saturn is transiting conjunct your natal moon, or it has drishti on your moon, which means he's aspecting your moon. We really want to look at the blood, because for sure the blood will be involved, and there could be some issues that manifest with your blood. And these issues are anemia that could come up, low iron, hemoglobin issues, or other chronic blood issues such as sickle cell disease, which can be chronic. And the symptoms may not be so apparent in the beginning, but just be aware that if you are feeling fatigued lately, or have cold extremities, or poor concentration, or a general sense of depletion, and Saturn is affecting your moon, then you might want to get your blood labs, your blood drawn, and check your complete blood count, and check your Chem 7, Chem 11, and even check your hormones, especially for women that are perimenopausal or in menopause or postmenopause, because they could be issues with your hormones. And in particular, we don't think about this. I mean, we always think about anemia in childbearing women because of their menstrual cycles if they lose a lot of blood, but anemia can happen to women in menopause, because as estrogen level goes down, there is another hormone called hepcidin that becomes elevated. And as this hormone elevates because of low estrogen, it can reduce your ability to absorb iron. So we definitely want to check our hormone levels when we are in menopause and if we're experiencing anemia, because this could be an issue, and that means that you might want to speak to your doctor about balancing your hormones and what are the options there. Okay, so this is a North Indian chart, and as you can see, Saturn is here in Pisces. He's transiting in Pisces right now, and this first diamond is considered the first house. That means that's the first house, which has to do with your body, your mind. It's you. And then I'm going to discuss Saturn's transit through the different houses. So if Pisces is your second house, how that might affect you. If Pisces is the third house in your chart, how that might affect you. If Saturn is in your first house, that means Saturn is basically transiting right over your head, and he's bringing on excess vata issues everywhere, all over your body, your mind. He's bringing stress, fear, accelerated aging, and just excess vata everywhere. So this is a difficult transit, in particular for your health and mind. It's going to affect you. But remember what I said, there are Jyotish remedies besides seeing an Ayurvedic practitioner and a medical doctor, a doctor that you trust. There are Jyotish remedies to help mitigate this vata transit, because this is a difficult transit. So the 8th house and the first house are two very difficult transits. I have to admit, they're pretty intense. So definitely come and see me so we can discuss Jyotish remedies if this is the case for you. Okay, if Saturn's transiting in your second house, there are issues that can come up, such as savings, inability to save money. It might mean that you might be eating food that is not so healthy, processed food, stale food. You might be having to deal with issues with your mouth, such as cavities or gum issues and such, because the second house has to do with the mouth, with food, and with savings. If Saturn is transiting your third house, you are very lucky. This is one of the best transits for Saturn, because he gives you manifesting ability here. He gives you the ability to really go out there and get what you want, to get what you desire. He helps you work hard for what you want, but he gives you that courage to go out there and get it. And for some of you that usually don't have a lot of courage, and if you have Saturn transiting right now in your third, and all of a sudden you find all this courage and you're like, how am I doing this? Like, I would have never said this before. I would have never put myself out there. Just know Saturn in the third, awesome. So enjoy the next 2 years, because these are one of the very few transits of Saturn that really work well for us. So enjoy it. Saturn in the fourth can bring issues with lungs, as I was saying earlier, the fourth house, lack of peace. It could bring issues with having to fix your house a lot. It could be issues with your car. So Saturn just means a lot of fixing and repairs. There's a lot of things that you have to repair. Saturn transiting your fifth could be issues with students if you teach. Children might have issues with your sadhana practice. Saturn transiting your sixth, another good transit. There's good things and bad things about Saturn transiting your sixth. It means that you'll have to deal with enemies. So that's kind of the negative part about that. But then Saturn gives you the strength to defeat all your enemies. So that's the positive. And the other good thing is that Saturn in the sixth is as if he's praying for you. So he's going to help you focus on your health and give you the discipline to really get your health in order. Saturn transiting the seventh means that you might have to be away a lot from your significant other or your spouse. So that's not always a good thing. Saturn in the eighth, remember what I was saying earlier, and this is what I'm dealing with personally. It brings up a lot of losses. I lost my mother during the Saturn transit. I have a lot of blood issues, the anemia. Knock on wood, no debt so far, but a lot of expenses. And the expenses that I had to deal with are related to moon, and the moon is mother. So there were a lot of expenses because of the death of my mother. So I had to deal with a lot, and I'm still dealing with it. And I've got another 2 years, so it's tough. I'm doing the remedies, and that's really helping, the Jyotish remedies, that is, and it's really helping my mental health and my ability to just keep going. But it is a tough transit. So if you have Saturn transiting your eighth, please reach out because I can help you. But it can bring up debts and loans. So definitely don't take out any loans at this time. Don't start spending on your credit cards, because it's going to be really hard to pay anything off when you are creating debt during this transit. Saturn transiting your ninth house could mean that you're traveling for religious purposes or for traditional studies, or you might just be starting some traditional ancient studies like Vedic astrology. The 10th house has to do with career and work. And when Saturn's transiting the 10th, it means that you really have to work hard for every dollar that you earn. So it's tough. You're working hard, long hours, lots of hard work, and you're not really getting compensated a lot. Like, you're working so hard and you're not seeing the benefit of all that. But hang in there, because once Saturn transits to your 11th house, which that's coming up in a couple of years, that's where you're going to really see the benefit of all this hard work, because there are long-term gains that you will receive. And that is the third beneficial transit of Saturn, is the 11th house. On the other hand, you might experience some issues with siblings, particularly if you have elder siblings and friends. There might be some losses there. And finally, Saturn transiting your 12th house could bring up issues with sleep, meditation, or even the bedroom. Okay, so back to the anemia. So if Saturn is conjunct your moon right now with this transit, or is aspecting your moon, then for sure you could have issues with your blood. So if you have any of the symptoms I was talking to you about earlier, then you definitely want to get your blood work done. From an Ayurvedic perspective, there are 5 types of anemia that could be manifesting: Vata, Pitta, Kapha, Tridoshic, and then anemia, which is called, we say mud intake, but really it's about soil contamination. So I highly recommend that you have an Ayurvedic consultation and look into what type of anemia you have so that the Ayurvedic practitioner can prescribe the right protocol for you and the right Ayurvedic herbal formula for you, because that's going to make all the difference. And so if you've checked with your allopathic doctor and had your blood work done, you might want to take some iron supplements, vitamins, balance your hormones, as I was talking about earlier. Of course, diet is also part of the protocol, but a good Ayurvedic practitioner will help you with that. From an Ayurvedic perspective, once the Ayurvedic consultation is done and you know what type of anemia you have and what's going on, and try to find an Ayurvedic practitioner that can read blood work, because that will really help and support the protocol. But there's different protocols out there depending on the imbalance. I'm just kind of listing a few things here just to help you out and just to show you that there are different Ayurvedic herbs that can help and herbal formulas that can really help. So Trikatu Churna, for example, is a spice blend that stimulates Agni. And of course, if you know anything about Ayurveda, you know we always look at Agni. Agni, Agni, Agni. That's the digestive fire. If the digestive fire isn't working properly, then no amount of supplements that you're taking or food will work for you, because your body's not able to assimilate it. It's not able to uptake all the nutrients. So first and foremost, an Ayurvedic practitioner will ensure that Agni is stabilized. Then, so this is a formula that might be used, for example. Amla powder is, it's an Ayurvedic herb that is rich in vitamin C, so it enhances iron absorption and helps Rakta Dhatu, the red blood cells. Then we have some Ayurvedic formulas that I wanted to mention here. Punarnava Mandura is a classical formula for anemia. I mean, it's known to treat anemia, particularly if there is a Pitta and Kapha imbalance. Not so much for Vata, but for Pitta and Kapha. And because it can constipate. And then we have Gudashtaka, which is another formula that's very effective for anemia. Again, it's known to treat anemia, but it's more for balancing Vata. It's a health tonic and it's a detoxifying agent. Oh, there's a little typo there. Okay. So it helps to release toxins and it tonifies and it helps to treat anemia and balance that Vata dosha. So again, the Ayurvedic practitioner is going to determine where the imbalance is and give you the right formula. Triphala is pretty much tridoshic, so it can work for everyone. And Triphala is really good just as a general Ayurvedic herbal formula to help detoxify and make sure that you have regular elimination. So it's something that you can take in the evenings. Again, I wouldn't just start taking anything just because I mentioned it here. See an Ayurvedic practitioner before you, I wouldn't self-medicate. Like let's get an Ayurvedic practitioner involved so they can recommend the right formulas for you. But I just wanted to mention here some of the formulas that we can take for anemia. And finally, one herb called ashwagandha. I'm sure many of you have heard of ashwagandha, very popular, but this herb really helps to support adrenal health. It helps to balance hormones and it gives you strength, especially when you have anemia and you have low strength. Ashwagandha can be a really nice supplement to take as a supplement. And then we have the diet, and I have a list here of food items that you can take that either increase vitamin C so that you can have, you're able to absorb iron better, or the foods here listed could increase your iron levels, such as molasses or the greens or tempeh and so on, can help increase iron levels in your blood. So making sure that you have an iron-rich diet and vitamin C-rich diet is very, very important. Okay, we talked about allopathic considerations. And that's it. This was just a short presentation on how Saturn might be affecting your moon and about this transit and how it might be affecting you in general based on the house that is transiting in right now in your birth chart. If you want a more thorough understanding of what's going on in your chart, please reach out. Chandrakanti Astrology is the website. Send me an email, or you can also reach me on Instagram as well. Just message me there. Thank you. Take care.